Hey everyone, so today I am going to be reading from my dream diary to you guys, which I actually think is going to be a fun video, kind of different from what we've done so far. So I am actually pretty fascinated with dreams. I always have been. I think that they're really cool. I think that they have some hidden meanings, but not all the time. I think sometimes you just had something on your mind and you dreamed about it because it was on your mind before you went to bed, or your dream had no meaning at all, even though it was absolutely insane, some random dream that your brain decided to come up with. But some dreams, I feel like they actually mean something. I actually can tell a lot of times that I'm dreaming. So I have a dream dictionary. This is the Dreamer's Dictionary. From A to Z, 3,000 magical mirrors to reveal the meaning of your dreams. And it's written by Lady Stern Robinson and Tom Corbett. I'll have a link to it down below.
This is my dream diary. It's called Dreams Diary, and these are my entries. So you can title them and you can date them. So you can click right here to add a dream, and then down here it has facts about sleep, which I think is cool. So it says, interesting fact: not sleeping for 16 hours leads to a decrease in performance equivalent to having a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. You can just you click on your dream and there it is. There's a moon in the back, which is pretty. You can share them. Settings. It tells you a little bit about it. So you go to the about section and here's your little synopsis of the app.
Ginger's right there, by the way. So the first dream that I have down here, there's actually pretty odd. It felt very intense, very vivid. I remembered so much about this dream. It was a little bit longer than I feel like most dreams would be because there was so much detail, and it was like a slow moving dream. I called it Sea Monster, and I'll read you what I wrote. Don't judge me, it's a weird dream. This dream started off in my home. It was dark outside because a storm was headed. The winds were loud. I remember looking out my door and watching the leaves fly around. I remember hearing trees rustle. I remember that so clearly. I remember opening my door and peeking my head out the door. First I opened my storm door, and then I opened the screen door. I looked out, and I remember being dark, and it was very humid. It was like summer storm. I felt unsettled in this dream. Dream me did anyway, but real me could tell something was off. It was like I was in an alternate universe. My street was my street, but my real self could just tell something was not quite right about it. I remember it was almost like I was watching it happen. Like an outer body experience type thing. Like I was there, but I wasn't there. So I remember dreamy going through these motions and doing these things, and then I remember feeling myself feeling no, it's not right, and I felt like I was watching myself do these things and I wasn't actually doing them. The power was out, but it wasn't dark enough outside to make the house pitch black yet. I think I knew something was up because my dogs and little brother were nowhere to be found. While talking to my mom, I remember saying, "Isn't this weird?" My mom didn't know what I was talking about. I told her something was wrong in our house. I remember thinking, this is just not right. Hello, Lacey. Lacey's here now too. I remember thinking, this is just not right. This isn't correct. It shouldn't be like this. My cat was nearby, just calmly hanging out in the dining room like she normally does. I looked back outside. Rain was now pouring down. Water was building up in the streets. At that moment, my cat morphed. This is where it gets really weird. My cat morphed into this very strange creature. I don't even really know how to describe this creature. It was really odd. She was big and green and just really eerie looking. Like something I would imagine a sea monster to be. I remember seeing it happen, but again, I was felt like I was looking at this whole situation like an outer body experience. And I remember thinking, that kind of looks like a sea monster. It was really weird. She even began talking. Her voice was loud and echoed. Her voice was female and she threatened us. My mom and I stood there quietly for a minute. Our cat seemed to be back, but then she looked at us and smiled. Her eyes gleamed meanly, and her smile wasn't her normal content smile. My mom said, "We need to get rid of her." Without hesitation, I picked up my cat and ran out into the storm of her. I ran down the street, my eyes squinting in an attempt to avoid the debris. I got to the end of the street, stretched out my arms so that my possessed cat was hovering over the street. Now, this is one thing that would never really happen, because I feel like if my cat by some weird way was possessed by anything, I would be like, we need to save her! I remember feeling like real me was screaming to Dreamy to stop it. She was my cat, not a monster, but Dream Me could feel her body beginning to morph again. So I dropped her. As she was falling, she morphed back into the monster. It's like going back and forth on this out-of-body experience too. I could still feel what's going on. As she was falling, she morphed back into the monster. I began running back to my house. I heard the monster's voice yell, and then I heard my own voice, but Dream Me was not talking. It was my subconscious telling myself to wake up. This was just a dream. Which I said really sternly to myself. I was like, wake up! You're dreaming! And then I woke up. So I kind of knew I was dreaming the whole time, but when it got to a point where I didn't like it, I was like, get up! Which happens often. That same night, I had another dream, and this one is called The Lion. This dream seemed to take place right when my crazy sea monster dream left off. It started off by me running into my house quickly. I slammed the door shut behind me. My stepfather was now in the room as well, which made it feel a little bit more realistic that it wasn't just me and my mom, because it's never just me and my mom. My mom looked fearful, but my stepdad just looked lost. I was pretty wet from the rain. I stepped away from the door, now entering the living room. I was breathing slightly heavier than usual, and all of a sudden I had a dreaded feeling come over me. I slowly started to walk back to the door. The rain stopped now, but there was a weird noise outside, one I was unfamiliar with. I opened the door slowly and cautiously. I peeked my head outside but saw nothing. Then out of nowhere, a lion charged towards the door. My eyes widened. The lion roared a very intense and loud roar. I remember this. It was so loud that it like shook me to my core. I didn't realize I was dreaming in this dream, but this actually like shook me to my core. Like the last dream I didn't like because it was weird, but this actually scared me for some reason. So unrealistic too. At the same moment, I slammed the door shut. I tried to lock it, but the lion was forcing it open again. I remember this. I remember like slamming the door, holding it, and then trying to lock it, but it was like being pushed. I couldn't lock it. And so at that moment, Dream Me, I was shaking and terrified. I threw my body against the door and screamed, "Help!" on top of my lungs. At that moment, I woke up. Unlike the last dream, I was completely unaware I was dreaming. I looked this up in my dream dictionary. It said I should be ready to cope with someone's jealousy toward me. Just yesterday, I've come to realize that someone whom I trusted wasn't so trustworthy after all, and that jealousy was most likely to blame. The next day after this dream, I had found out some things about somebody who I really trusted, and I'm not going to go into detail about it because I don't know, I still have a relationship with this person. It was actually like a backstabbing moment for me, and I talked to a couple people and I didn't realize at the time, but they were like, you know, it's jealousy, and it starts to make sense if you hear a situation. So the next day I didn't dream, but last night I did dream. So this dream is called Vacation at the Beach. This dream is just one of those dreams that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I was looking at a vacation home with my older sister. It was just the two of us that were looking. We were looking at a condo that was on the beach. I'm allergic to sand, so I wouldn't be at the beach. And I also prefer camping. It felt almost like an open house. There were several people looking at this condo. We only wanted it for rent for about a week, so I don't know why it was so much like an open house. It was very much like an open house. There was somebody there to answer your questions, and there were beverages, you know, like bottles of water. There was a lot of people walking around and looking at it. So it was very much like an open house. People were taking pictures, which is another thing I found a bit odd. I don't know why you would take pictures of a house that you're not living in. My sister was one of them. The lady showing us the house came over and got mad. We moved to the balcony and the view was really nice. You could see the sand, you could see the ocean, and it just was really pretty, the view. On the neighboring balcony, a couple was just sitting outside and watching the waves crash into the sand. They were really friendly and helpful when we asked questions about the property. I know a few other things happened, but I can't remember them clearly. Alright, so this dream is another dream that is just odd. This one I put warlocks with a question mark because I'm not really sure of what I was dreaming of. This dream is very fuzzy. I can only remember bits and pieces, but I'll do my best to remember as much as I can. I was in the college classroom. I'm not in college. I went to school for paralegal. I graduated a few years ago, so I was here twice in my dream. Once I was learning a lesson, and that is all that happened. And at least that's all I can remember happening. The next time I was there, it started out as a normal class. We were sitting in a semi-large classroom. Everyone was at a desk. Then all of a sudden, people froze. They just stopped moving. Like, you know what it reminds me of Charmed when Piper would freeze people and they would just freeze in their spot? That's what it was like. As if they were frozen in their desks, The professor, however, did not freeze, nor did I. But I pretended I was. I remember the professor walking to the door and opening. People walked in. I think it was 2 or 3 men. I remember they were in black suits, and I remember knowing they were evil. I think it was something about their appearance, or maybe it was their demeanor. I'm really not sure. That part is fuzzy. I remember the professor talking to them, and I believe that the professor was a woman. I can't remember what they were saying, but I do remember that they were plotting something. My foot slipped, and they all looked at me. My cover was blown. They knew I was not frozen. Why I didn't freeze and why everyone else froze, besides the professor, isn't beyond me. Like, maybe the professor froze everyone. I don't really know. Class became unfrozen, and when they regained their consciousness, some were bad also. The men were warlocks or some type of supernatural beings, I know. There is a chunk missing from my dream, but I believe the class broke out into a fight or a battle of some sorts, myself included. I don't know what happened or who won. The next thing I knew, I was running to my boyfriend's car, and we drove off quickly. And this one is called The Sweet Old Lady, which I also dreamed the same night of the other 2. I had 3 dreams last night. I was with my boyfriend, and we were at this big party. It felt like an event or a celebration. There were tables everywhere and lots of guests. There was also a stage that was unoccupied. My boyfriend and I separated. My boyfriend was talking to a friend, and I was keeping this old lady whom I had just met company. She had a little Pomeranian with her, and I typically am not a fan of that breed, but this dog loved me and was pretty cute. I remember the dog did cute little things to get my attention whenever I would resume my conversation with its owner. The old lady had short, curly, permed hair that she dyed a reddish color. She was in a dress that reminded me of something that a Golden Girls character would wear. She made me laugh, and I had a good time talking to her, but we had to leave. The lady begged me to stay longer, which I thought was a little weird. I just met her, and she seemed really upset that I was leaving, but I had to go. So I apologized and told her I really did have to leave now. We left the party, and later on, it seemed like a week later that I was informed. It seemed like my dream skipped a week, if that makes any sense to you guys. Like, it went from one day, and then it was a week later in my dream. We found out that the old lady was sick and she had passed away. I felt terrible that I left early that night. She was just lonely and needed a friend. This dream actually upset me. Like, at first, like, it was nice. The lady was, like, kind of like, almost like a grandmother, it seemed. Like, not my grandmother or anything like that. She seemed like she was someone's grandma. Like, she had that personality, and she was really sweet. When I found out she passed away in my dream, I was, like, so upset. I was like, oh my gosh, why did I leave? I feel terrible. So I could do a video where I try to interpret all these dreams if you'd want, or you could tell me what you think about them down below, especially the sweet old lady one. I'm curious to know about that one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll probably do more of these as I dream more. I think I'm going to do 5 at a time, so this was my first 5. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!